What's up? Welcome back to my channel, or for the first time if you're new, I'm Sylvan, and today I'm going to be reacting to Honkai Star Rail version 1.3's special program, Light Slips the Gate, Shadow Greets the Throne. I'm really excited to see where the story is going to be going into the future. I really enjoyed 3.0, and I'm a big fan of both Triby and Maide as characters, so I won't delay things any further. Feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, leave a comment on your thoughts, and let's get into this.
In the legend's beginning, the world was just a lump of flour.
It was?
Then the gods cast yeast into it, and Albert was born from the dough.
Okay.
The Earth Titan granted it a divine body, and the Reason Titan bestowed it with thought.
Why is Maide the one doing
Add
this?
in rich emotions, noble virtues, oh, and don't forget a pinch of mischief.
After that, the Romance Titan transformed into golden butterflies, gently touching their chests to grant them the ability to love.
Aww.
There is no word for romance in the Kremnoan language.
Of course there
Is
isn't.
that so? I heard Nikador once failed in love,
Oh.
and even got into a fight with their rival.
Huh? That's just a baseless slander. A wild tale meant to tarnish Nikador's name.
Oh, Dee. This story is quite well known in Akama.
Lady Trebios, let me explain. Nikador is not that kind of titan.
And so, the first bird was born.
God.
Albie, do you like this story?
This Amphoreus place. Maybe I shouldn't have come.
On such a romantic
Put a
day,
bit too much fatigue
why don't
into
we
him.
raise a toast to all the love and beauty in the world?
Alright, fun little opening. Time for the trailer, I suppose. Back here.
Can your murderous intent match up to what fate has in store for you?
Ooh.
In fear, you shall abandon your mortal body.
Ooh, new enemies, I love that.
Let me have the honor of taking the lead in this battle.
Hell yeah.
This
Ooh, I'm loving the
journey
music
is
for him.
Blood and flames.
Ah, hello there. Oh? What?
3 molded life with their hands.
What?
And 3 guided Calamity's gate. 3 carved the heavens and the earth. 3
I love this
wove
place.
the threads of fate.
It looks
Hello,
great.
we are Treeby, Trian. And fighting the West Wind, away we go!
I love them way more than I expected to. They're really goofy.
There's strength in numbers.
God, is that their ult or something?
It's time to end
Ooh, there's
this.
that guy.
Offer your souls to the blood.
The son of Urgo is destined to be crowned in blood!
All the they die.
Stay alive.
Oh shit.
In a single blow.
How we wish to see you again.
It's now my turn to fight against it.
Things like... Looks like things are getting pretty serious. Interesting. So to go through this a little bit again, they're very heavily emphasizing that Maide is going to be playing a major part in the story or this next section. Makes sense, he's one of the featured characters, not surprising there. But the amount of emphasis there is interesting. As this line implies, can your murderous intent match up to what fate has in store for you? It seems like Maide's part in the story for 3.1 will have something to do with his destiny. And based on how this entire trailer is designed, it makes me think that his destiny is one of potential bloodshed and hardship and conquest, much in line with the culture he comes from. Based on some of the visuals we get later, it also seems like this might lead to conflict with the other other Chrysos heirs, potentially. Whether intentionally or otherwise, it at least seems to be a fear or potentiality that there will be a betrayal, whether that is Maide betraying everyone else, or, as we see here, it might be the other way around, that for some reason Finon betrays Maide. But either way, whether or not this literally happens, it is clear that this is something they want us to be thinking about. The potential for Maide to become an enemy, regardless of who's at fault for that happening. The same voice that was questioning whether or not he will be ready for his fate states that in fear you shall abandon your mortal body. What exactly that means, I am not entirely sure, but immediately what my thoughts go to is that of inheriting the will of Nicodor, almost, of becoming an embodiment of strife, and strife is conflict, and conflict does not really gel well with unified effort in the name of saving everybody. Inevitably, strife as a concept does not align with unity or teamwork. At least in a conventional interpretation, it doesn't. Of course, we know in lore that the value of strife within Amphoreus and the ideals of Nicodor were that more of strengthening everyone through strife, but that becomes more questionable when everyone is in such a desperate position already. But whether or not that is what they're trying to imply here, it is what my mind goes to, is this idea that Maide will abandon his mortal body and inherit something of the way of strife, potentially pitting him against the rest of us. I don't necessarily think that will permanently happen. I don't think he will permanently be an enemy of ours, but the conflict that could arise out of that question of whether or not he will is potentially interesting, and I'm excited to see what they do with it. I really like the design of these new enemies. I really like their vibe. It's very distinct from what we've gotten in Amphoreus already, but also still within the same general aesthetics. And then, of course, we have this bit that's just showing off Maide. Now, to return to this moment, I find it very interesting that Finon is the one that is attacking Maide, because where we last left off, we don't necessarily know what is going on with Finon, given that he is actively in the essentially trial to become a demigod. We don't know necessarily what that will do to him, how that will change him, if at all. So there is the possibility that once he comes out of that, he is changed in some way, or in some way has learned something new that leads him to try to attack Maide. Either way, I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but I feel like this kind of visual is something too explicit and distinct for them to not do something with it. Now, I've slowed this down to just get a closer look at this shot. Yeah, so the interesting thing here is paying close attention to it, given that this is all in silhouette, and rather than blood we're seeing what looks more like petals or stones or whatever, it is entirely possible that Finon is not actually stabbing Maide here. It's hard to believe that what he's doing here isn't trying to do that, but it is possible that he missed and this is going past him. And then here we're introduced to the new area, I presume, and we have all these lines speaking of 3 individuals, which is obviously building up to Tribby and the other 2, which of course are the other major characters who will have a limited banner. And here we get even more new enemies, it seems. Once again, love the aesthetic of them. They are very distinct, still within the general vibe though. I'm really liking the variety that they have for the various enemies. But then we just have a little bit of a show off of their abilities, of their kit, that kind of thing. But then we get to what is arguably the most interesting part of the trailer to me, which is this man. As far as I know, we have very little info on him. If I recall correctly, he showed up in the one Amphoreus trailer, so presumably he's a pretty big deal and will probably play a major part in the story and maybe be something that is sort of causing complications in the overall plan of the Chrysos heirs. Based on his general design, realistically, I feel like there are 2 main options here for who this is or what they are, which one is I could see them being an agent or embodiment of the Titan of Death, Thanatos. They just sort of have a bit of the vibe that would fit for that in my mind. And if we even go back to the Ancient Hymn trailer here with this shot that is supposed to be of Thanatos or something relating to Thanatos, we can see that though it's not the exact same colors, the colors that are used here are purples, whites, blacks, and blues, which though they don't necessarily perfectly align with this guy, he does have these purple accents that are of a similar color. So that is one possibility. Meanwhile, the other possibility I can imagine is that this is a more explicit embodiment of the encroaching darkness itself. Some kind of embodiment of its will or agent of it that is here to stop the Chrysos heirs. Either way, it's fairly clear that this guy is going to be some kind of antagonist figure, at least initially. And I could see very well them being basically the face of the encroaching darkness or whatever antagonist figure he is connected to that we are fighting for much of this story. And this merely is our introduction. But of course, he also could just be something that we deal with in 3.1. We'll have to see. Either way, I'm very interested in what they are, who they are, all that. And with this introduction of him in this trailer, presumably the person speaking is him, and he says it's time to end this. Offer your souls to the fire, which does lead me towards the idea that they are in some way connected to Thanatos more than the Abyss, but it could be either, honestly, still, or some other rogue agent. But the idea of offering souls feels very connected to death. Either way, we can see that this guy will be a threat that clashes with Tribby at one point. Whether or not this is when he first appears, we'll have to see. But either way, this guy is clearly going to be a threat that we have to deal with. And then here we have this interesting shot that comes immediately after a shot of the Trailblazer and Mem. It's unclear if they are the ones who caused this or not, but nonetheless, this shot interests me because it looks like this person has ice and almost reality and space itself bursting out of their chest. And from the looks of it, they aren't someone that necessarily we've seen before, because I don't recognize this staff they have. And this blade thing they have isn't the same blade as the masked man, so I don't necessarily think it's them. Potentially this is some kind of antagonist figure for this version or something like that. Either way, I'm not entirely sure who this is, but I'm sort of slotting it into my brain of look out for someone who has that kind of circular headed staff, because they presumably will play some kind of major part in the story, at the very least for this version. We then very briefly here get a shot of, I believe, Anaxa, who is fighting against someone. The blade that he's countering, I'm not entirely sure whose blade it is, but it does look vaguely reminiscent of the blade that the guy with the staff had. But either way, this clearly shows that we'll be introduced to Anaxa in this version. Who knows what part he plays, but it makes sense given that he's going to be in 3.2. But then it seems we have this shot of Tribby, Trini, and Trian, I believe their names are. I'm terrible with names, so a character with 3 names ruins me. But the 3 of them facing off against the same masked man as before, which we can tell based on just the sword, the distinctive hilt, and it seems like one of them is doing some kind of big move. Based on a shot later in this trailer and a shot from a previous trailer, it seems like this might be some kind of sacrifice play. And I'll be curious to see if they actually go through with this, because I'm not blind and I'm on the internet, so I've seen a lot of people talking about the fact that Star Rail is really bad about doing lots of fake out deaths and never actually harming drastically anybody that is a playable character. But I personally don't think that actually damages the story too much, and I feel like it can still have merit for things like this to happen. Failed sacrifices and sacrifices that turn out to not be sacrifices still have narrative merit in my mind. But I will posit, nonetheless, that given Tribby is a character that is actually 3 characters, I feel like there is a bit more wiggle room to result in the possibility of there being an actual sacrifice that happens. For one of them to die and the other 2 to survive, or something along those lines. I don't know if that'll necessarily happen. We don't necessarily have a good track record of characters actually dying in Star Rail, but I do believe it is more possible with these 3 than most other playable characters. But either way, regardless of how that sacrifice goes, it is clear that either before or after that point, the masked man faces off against, at the very least, Phynon and Maide, seemingly back in Castrum Kremnos, underneath the Lance of Fury. And though it goes by very quickly, there is one interesting thing to note in this little action sequence here, which is Phynon and Maide are facing off against this masked man, and it seems like he has some kind of power to discorporate or create illusions or something along those lines, because as we see here very briefly, we can see the masked man coming in. He's sort of blurry in this shot, but we can see sort of the distinctive hilt of his blade coming in to attack Maide. Maide strikes him and he just sort of turns to nothing. Interesting note, something about his powers potentially. And adding to all of the details we can figure out about this masked man, we see that whether this is separate from the time fighting Phynon and Maide and the time fighting against Tribby and the other 2, there is at some point where he gets the upper hand and strikes Casterus with probably not a fatal blow, given that Casterus is one of the characters for 3.2, that kind of thing. And also, this doesn't look like a fatal blow. It just looks like a potentially scary near fatal blow type deal. And here we have the other shot that I was mentioning before that implies to me that it is entirely possible that even if it's not a true permanent death or something, there will be a explicit sacrifice that is made by one of the three of Tribby's. I'm terrible with the names of them and haven't been able to place the names to the exact hairstyles and stuff yet, so I'm not specifically sure which one this one is yet, but one of them, this one, seems to be attempting to sacrifice themselves or something along those lines. And then where the trailer effectively leaves us is with this shot of Maide lounging on a throne of red crystal, as the line that we got before, "The son of Gorgo will be crowned in blood," is chanted, signifying, as I mentioned at the beginning, that clearly the arc of Maide will be integral to this version, whether that's in the form of his own personal story quest or directly connected into the main story. We'll have to see. Either way, they have emphasized it so deeply that I imagine it has to do with the main story to at least some degree. And that is the trailer. So now I will move on to the rest of the live stream.
Even if something unexpected happens to Finan, we've prepared contingencies to ensure the trial proceeds smoothly.
Okay.
Impressive.
I'll be curious
as
to see what
always,
that's like.
Aglaya.
If
Ever so
necessary.
meticulous.
It's time to plan for the next one.
Yeah. Who are we going after next?
Does this mean we're going to battle another Titan?
Sort of the name of the game.
Core flames need to be reclaimed through violence.
So it looks like Cersei's is our next target.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Isn't
Like
Cersei's already
Kefali,
supposed to be dead?
Cersei's
or
is a
just
Titan
silent? I
friendly
forget.
toward humanity, and has even willingly entrusted their core flame to the Grove for safekeeping.
Oh, so we are... Okay,
That's
so the
great
Grove
if there's
has
no
the core
need
flame.
for fighting. Just a peaceful retrieval.
I imagine the
This
Masked
mission
Man
might be
will be
much
the threat that
easier,
complicates
huh?
that.
Absolutely
Okay.
no fighting.
Sure. Definitely.
Oh.
But in the recent version trailer, enemies were swarming in like a tide.
Yep. And the place generally seems abandoned.
Busted. Actually, the Grove was recently invaded by
Yeah,
the
that's what it seemed like.
Huh?
gathering intelligence about the catastrophe and locating Cersei's core flame to bring it back to Aqaba.
Okay, so we're
During this
effectively
process,
doing
the
crisis
Trailblazer
control.
will encounter a mysterious enemy attempting to steal the core flame.
Yep,
The
Masked
masked
Man.
figure shown fighting the Trailblazer in the trailer.
Ooh, I love his
The
looking
one
game.
with the mask and cloak?
What faction do they belong to?
They're an unknown enemy.
Okay.
This journey to the Grove may be more perilous than expected.
We weren't
For
okay, yeah,
now,
they're a boss. We
let's
weren't
call them the
explicitly
Flame
told
Reaver. And to help our
that they're
Trailblazer
part of
navigate
the
their hero's
Abyss.
journey, I brought some intel about this Flame Reaver.
Flame
In battle,
Reaver,
the Flame
interesting.
Reaver can summon clones to fight alongside them. These
I
clones
love the
can
look
launch
of
joint attacks with the Flame Reaver. Moreover, the Flame Reaver can absorb these clones to
Oh,
gain
okay.
buffs. Consuming these buffs
Looks like they have that
allows
crescent
the
staff, so I
Flame Reaver
guess
to
in the
unleash
trailer
even
that
more
was that.
devastating attacks.
That may not be a problem for me.
God.
But an enemy
Anyways,
using
I
clones to
noticed
fight
the infinity
surely
symbol
challenged
that
the
is Amphoreus
Trailblazer.
there.
I've always been curious about the trial required to ascend as a demigod.
Yeah.
Lady
I want to know
Trebios,
more about that.
You were the very first demigod and therefore first Chrysos heir on this land to pass a Titan's trial. What exactly did you go through when you received Yanis's core flame?
This is a bit embarrassing to say,
Uh-huh.
but we really can't remember those events
Oh,
from
okay,
so long
of course.
ago.
Keep your secrets.
It happened during the Era Chrysia. For the people of Amphoreus now, it would be considered ancient history.
I suppose that's
That's
fair.
okay. With the Trailblazer around, anything is possible.
Anyways, are we not
In
going to
the
ask
main
Aglia, who
storyline
might
of
actually
version
remember?
3.1.
It seems we'll have the chance to learn how humanity's first demigod
I'm
came
excited
into
to see
being.
that.
Exactly.
Any more
We'll see
lore
what
is
that-
good.
The one who popped out of the box holding a letter, was it Trian
Ugh,
or Trinan?
don't do this to me. I'm bad at this.
Trinan! It was Trinan!
Correct
Okay,
answer.
Trinan.
The one who suggested this game. Could it be Trian?
Huh? Right again!
Okay, so
Of
Trian
course.
is the sort
The
of
three of them
spunky
have very different
troublemaker one, I guess.
personalities, making them easy to tell apart. Trinan is silent and sharp, with
Right,
both
okay.
eyes covered. Trian is mischievous little rascal with furry eyebrows. And Treeby is the most outgoing and
Okay.
lively.
That honestly,
Typically, Treeby is the
that being
main
explicitly stated
spokesperson,
helps me, I think.
responsible for communicating with the Chrysos heirs.
Why are there three of you identical little girls?
I suppose that is the
relates
question.
to the duties of the Chrysos heirs. We were the world's first demigod, receiving the prophecy of deliverance from Kefali.
Okay.
To spread the prophecy across Amphoreus, We split into many versions of ourselves and used Yanis's Century Gate.
Okay, so they just
to
intentionally
travel
did that.
quickly to various
Interesting.
places.
Through our teacher's tireless efforts,
Would they be able
the
to do that
Chrysos
again?
heirs gradually united as allies.
But speaking of opening gates, Trinan previously revealed that Trian is nearing her limit and might only be able to open the Sentry Gate
Yeah,
twice
I'm
more.
curious what that specifically
scare me.
means.
Using divine power to open the gate comes at a steep price.
What might that price
Every
be?
time the Sentry Gate is used, it takes something out of them.
Interesting,
Over
okay.
time, this deterioration reaches
I could see what was going on in the trailer being
limit.
opening the gate
Reaching
again
that
beyond their
won't
limit.
lead
then.
to anything bad happening. Will it? Mighty is my idol.
Oh, okay.
He's the ideal version of myself. I aspire to be like him.
Oh my
Strong,
God.
unyielding, a real tough guy. He's so cool, handsome.
Totally.
Why is
Even
Albert
though
so
he might seem
enraptured by my
unapproachable
day?
at first,
The blood of patricide flows through Kremnos' royal line.
Interesting.
Ooh, sounds like Mighty bears a heavy past.
Castrum Kremnos has a tradition of being crowned in blood.
All right, that
Since
phrase
its
again.
founding, every new king of Castrum Kremnos has killed the reigning king to claim the throne,
Interesting.
without exception.
Yikes!
Huh.
So that's how it is in a city that worships strife.
Makes sense, I suppose.
Bloody succession to the throne.
Because of this tradition, and a prophecy foretelling Mighty's eventual ascension, his father cast him into the Sea of Souls shortly after his birth,
Okay.
attempting to kill him before he could grow up.
I think we learned a little bit of this, but
how could he bring
interesting.
himself to do that?
But in the end, Mighty returned to Castrum
and that's where his immortal
Kremnos with
body
an
comes
immortal
from.
body. He led the discontented citizens of Kremnos away from their mad king, wandering the lands and waging war until he joined the flame chase journey.
okay, so
What
he's
doesn't
been
kill him
essentially
only
a
makes him
wandering king.
stronger, huh? But why did Mighty refuse the core flame of strife and give it to Finan instead?
That's what I'm curious
This
about.
combat prowess.
Strife, slaughter, glory. These have been the traditions of Kremnoans and their destiny for 1,000 years.
Mhm.
But is this destiny truly what the
Oh.
Kremnoans deserve?
Is he doubting the way of
refuse
strife?
to let such a bloody tradition continue.
Interesting.
Dee, the Kremnoan people in Akama have always expected you to ascend the throne, lead them back to their homeland, and restore their glory. Now that we've reclaimed Nikador's core flame and located the whereabouts of Castrum Kremnos, how will you answer their expectations?
Give me more time to think.
Interesting. So
Ah,
he's doubting
as the last
strife
prince,
as a
He is
path.
burdened with the fate
But
of an
he is
entire kingdom.
Not
You
sure
must
what to
consider
do.
their
Interesting.
honor and
That
sense of
actually intrigues me a
belonging
lot.
while forging a truly beneficial path for them. Oh, what a heavy task.
I wonder
As for
what
Mighty's decision
Titan
and the
he'll
fate of the
take the
Kremnons,
core flame
Stay
of.
tuned for the
Maybe
Trailblaze
reason?
mission and version 3.1.
He'll become the first reasonable king of
I can
Kremnos?
guarantee one thing.
Among the Chimeras, there's a particular squad that hasn't been performing up to expectations lately.
And we're gonna come in as the Trailblazer
So,
to manage it.
Trailblazers can take on the role
I knew
of
it.
manager,
I was right.
personally helping the Chimera Squad turn
We're the
things
perfect
around
manager.
and become the strongest team of all.
Well, thank you to all our viewers for tuning in.
All right.
And now
That's that,
the
it
version
seems.
3.1 special program has come to an end. That's a wrap. Bye-bye.
Seems like a cool version. Seems a little light in some areas, but we're still getting main story, and that's what I'm honestly most excited for here. It seems like everything story-wise is just going to be in the main story. They didn't mention anything about us getting a specific story quest for any individual character, so I'll be curious to see how they tie all these elements in, and overall I'm just excited to see where the future of Amphoreus goes, as I thoroughly enjoyed the first part. So with that, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Feel free to like and subscribe if you did. Leave a comment on your thoughts, and I hope you all have a great day. Goodbye.